Well, Doctor, this is a puzzling case.
Yes, we were very confused at the time. There was only one man in that museum, and he somehow removed a priceless work of art from the building. Yet when I apprehended him, the item was not on his person.
But it seems Holmes may have an idea how the deed was done.
Yes. He wouldn't explain his hunch to me at the time, though. He likes to keep things secret.
Well, one thing we're not keeping secret is the fact that the Watson Files is looking for a sponsor.
No, that one is public knowledge. Surely there is a company out there who wants to take advantage of this wonderful advertising opportunity.
I would think so.
And they just need to go where again?
thewatsonfiles.com and click on the sponsor link.
Yes, that was it.
So now let's get back to this art thief.
Yes. Holmes was keeping us in suspense, so we all retired to our quarters for the evening, with the promise that the painting would be returned the next day. After breakfast in the morning, Eggs Benedict, I believe, I went to Holmes's apartment, anxious to get to work. But when I arrived, I was shocked to see on the wall...
Yes, Watson, come in.
How did you know it was me?
Well, I know you can't stand to be left in the dark, so I assumed you'd be arriving early this morning, eager to solve the case.
Well, you've got me again, Holmes. You never cease to amaze... Holmes, is that the...
What? Oh, yeah, that's the missing Botticelli.
But... How?
Come now, Watson. A little simple deduction will give you the answer.
I must say, Holmes, I'm at a loss.
Just consider what you know.
You stole the painting?
No. Well, yes. Technically, I guess I did, but not from the museum.
I'm afraid I don't follow.
I'll explain in a minute.
Holmes, why must everything be a waiting game with you?
Ah, here we are. That should be Officer Weathers. Come in. Officer Weathers, thank you for coming.
Mr. Holmes, and Dr. Watson, good to see you again.
Likewise, officer.
Now, Holmes, you said you'd be able to get the painting for us today?
Yes, I have.
You have?
It's hanging right there.
That's the missing Botticelli?
Botticelli.
Whatever. So where did you find it?
Ah, that is a very good question. I was just about to explain it to the good doctor here.
Please do.
Well, I deduced that the likely motive for a detour to the front of the building was to stash the painting somehow. When you told me that the administrative offices and such were in that corner, I assumed the mailroom would be there as well.
I suppose you're going to tell me he mailed the painting to himself.
Yes, very good, officer. It was the only logical way to get the item out of the building without carrying it out. He mailed it, but not to himself.
Well, then to whom?
Well, I returned to the museum this morning, but the mail had already been picked up.
Then how'd you find it?
That was the other mystery.
Who was he sending the painting to?
Yes, because he couldn't send it to himself.
Of course not. That would be too obvious.
Exactly. At first I was stumped as well, but then you mentioned he was a mathematics student at the university.
Yeah, so?
Well, for several months now I've suspected that one of the math professors, a James Martin, has been running an organized crime ring.
What, like the math godfather?
Something like that, yes.
Are you serious, Holmes?
Yes, quite. And I believe the fact that I found this painting sitting on his front porch should confirm I'm not far off base on this one.
You found it on his porch?
Yes, and I...
Stole it?
I prefer the term purloined.
Well, that would certainly seem to indicate that he's involved with the case.
Yes. Surely this young man would have sent the painting to someone who knew it was coming.
So, was this Martin fellow?
Marty.
What?
His students call him Professor Marty.
Okay. Was Professor Marty home when you were snooping around his house?
No, unfortunately he was out at the time. I was hoping perhaps he would return to his house with me to help with the apprehension.
What? Are you afraid of this man, Holmes?
Yes, very good, my dear Watson. Perhaps apprehension was not the best term, given its double meaning. No, I'm merely interested in apprehending the criminal.
Ah, yes, of course.
So, Officer Weathers, shall we?
Holmes, what are you doing?
What does it look like?
We can't break into his house. There are laws against illegal searches, you know.
Well, then it's a good thing I'm not a police officer, huh?
It's empty.
Looks like the Godfather skipped town.
Yes, he must have known we were onto him when the package didn't arrive.
Perhaps this time you've underestimated your opponent.
I'll put out an APB on him, but I'm guessing he's long gone by now.
Yes, no doubt. Not to worry, though. I doubt we've seen the last of Professor Marty.
So, Dr. Watson, were the police able to catch the professor?
No. I'm afraid the officer was correct in his assessment of the situation. But we did have some solid evidence on the janitor, so technically the case was solved. They found his fingerprint on the inside of the box that the painting was mailed in.
Well, it sounds like justice was served after all, then.
Yes, it was.
So, I believe we are taking the week off next week?
Yes, but we'll be back in 2 weeks, on the 16th, when I'll tell you about the strange case of a woman who burned to death underwater.
Is that even possible?
Well, I guess you'll have to come back and hear the story, won't you?
I wouldn't miss it for the world. Tonight's Watson Files Adventures was written by Scott Strosahl. Spencer Holmes and Dr. Watson were played by Michael Helgens and Greg Kilberger. Additional voices were performed by Steve Rampici. This is Craig Dowland saying good night from Strobe Studios.